Alright, good Erev Shabbos everybody. I came across something on Facebook today that really bothered me, and that's why I'm making the video about it. A woman is writing about how she has given birth to her fourth son, and she said that she always felt very uncomfortable by the bris milah of her first three sons, and she would just prefer not to circumcise her fourth son at all. But she says she's probably going to be under a lot of peer pressure from the modern Orthodox community that she is a member of. I don't think that means necessarily that she's modern Orthodox, but that she attends a modern Orthodox school. And she expresses her discomfort with the whole thing, because she said, we're taught that the human body is made perfect. Why would you need to remove something? So can anybody explain? She's asking if anyone can explain to her why she should do it. She doesn't want to do it, and don't just say because Hashem said so. I don't know why this woman is a member of a modern Orthodox synagogue, to be honest. Maybe because her husband or something. It's extremely upsetting because for the most part, with very, very few exceptions, it's just the standard. It doesn't matter how assimilated, intermarried, a Jew knows that you have a bris milah. That's just part of being a Jew. That's just a basic part of Yiddishkeit. And I understand some people, they don't do it bismanoi or this and that and other things, but there are very, very few exceptions where you're going to have someone who doesn't have a bris milah. Baruch Hashem, there's a mikveh here, and I'm happy that the video didn't stop. I was able to pause the whole way. Anyway, so I was talking about this posting about the bris milah thing. Now this one line that she said, don't tell me it's because Hashem said so. So she's not bikuris. She's a heretic. This is what I mean when I say Judaism is a religion. It's not a race. And and I was talking, someone was upset at me about my political views and different things, vis-a-vis Israel and so forth, and about Kiruv and this and that, and he said, what about the mitzvah of Arevus and Teichecha? And we're Makarev people and so forth. And I said, you see, these Kiruv professionals, they're not doing a very good job. If you have somebody who could be an apikoros like this, davening in a modern Orthodox shul, being a member of modern Orthodox Kehillah, and they say they don't want to give their son a bris milah, and don't tell me, but they want to. If you want to convince, they're asking someone should convince them they should give their son a bris milah, and don't tell me just because Hashem said so. So that's apikoros. That's heresy. It's not. This is. And such a person davening in a frum shul. This is as bad, if not worse, than that missionary. Excuse me, in French Hill. It's the same thing. It's not that one apikorsis is worse than another. It's apikorsis to think that a dead Jew from 2,000 years ago is God. That's certainly apikorsis, but it's also apikorsis to say, I don't want to give my son a bris milah, and don't tell me I have to do it just because Hashem says so. This is teichecha. This is and this is the tough love. This is the way I think. Because look what we're coming up with. And then and she said, well, we're told that the body is perfect. And who told you that? Where'd you come up with this idea? And that was my. So I wrote an answer because she wanted an answer. Body's not perfect. We're not perfect. And we're not designed to be perfect. We're designed to be imperfect. We're not malachim, because Hashem loved us so much. Not like the Christians say that, you can't do it yourself, it's too difficult, so someone has to do it for you. No. That's the opposite of Judaism. This idea, and so therefore they believe that they achieve perfection by putting their faith in someone who did it for them, right? But by us, in Yiddishkeit, and L'havdil in Islam, it's the same idea. And they also criticize the Christians for this. And I love the Christians. There's a lot of beautiful things in Christianity too, to be honest. I'm not, but this is why I'm not a Christian. Today at work, people heard the video before. I was quoting something from Christian sources because I was talking to mostly Christians, I'm assuming. So I wanted to speak to them ba'asher hu sham, and I think it was the appropriate thing to do. And sure, maybe it's a chet, so Chtav zogen an al chet of so. I did a lot worse severes. Chtav toivon zich in a mikveh. And that's the whole pshat, though. That's the whole idea that I'm saying here. Is that we're not perfect, but we can be better. And Hashem gave it to us that we can do it. And that's the idea of Halpi Kabbalah and Nahamad Ksufa, the idea of a person is embarrassed when they get something for free. It's shameful to be a pauper, to be a beggar. And so Hashem gave us this, that we can at least have this illusion of working on it, because of course it's all from Hashem. Of course, yes, it ultimately is all essentially by the grace of God, by hashgacha pratis, and meaning we have bechira chavshis, we also have hashgacha pratis, and yes, everything is ultimately a gift from God, but it's a gift from God that He gives us that we don't have this idea like the Christians have of salvation and this and that. It's a different religion, and that's fine. I don't forgive them to have a different religion. They're welcome to do what they want, and they're doing fine with their thing, and we're doing fine with our thing. And all right, we're both reading the same books that they call old, and we know it's forever, because the books say that they're forever. How they can come up with an idea that it's going to be old when that book itself says this is forever. All right, no, we're not going to fight with them. They're doing very well with their thing. But the point is why we are not them. Why we disagree. We talk about that. So anyway, but this is a whole shot in Yiddishkeit. This is the whole ideology of Judaism, is that we are not perfect, and we're not created perfect. We're created bedavka, specifically imperfect, so that we can work on ourselves. That's the gift that God gives us. So that's one part of the answer that I would give. Why have a bris milah? Why should a Jewish man be circumcised? It's because it's an expression of this idea that we're not perfect, and we can improve ourselves. And that's God's gift to us, that we should feel that we accomplished something, and there's some satisfaction in that, in being a Jew, and that's part of the reward, is that we work on ourselves, and we work and we do things, and that's the reward in and of itself, in a certain sense. So that's the shot. So anyway, that's one answer that I have. That's why you should give your son a bris milah, because no, we are not created perfect. We are created specifically imperfect, and we have this, that we are to work on ourselves and improve ourselves, and that's part of the gift that God gave us as Jews, is that we can improve ourselves. The other answer that I have to give, I guess, a more personal issue, and I know other people disagree. I work with mentally ill people who feel very, very uncomfortable about bris milah. I know people who brought up from and this and that, but me, my parents were not from. My father wasn't even Jewish, but I had a bris bismanai kahalacha, and I appreciate that so much. And I'm so thankful that when I became from, it wasn't an issue, because I know other people it was an issue. And I'll tell you the truth, if my mother didn't give me a bris milah, or I would have been angry at her. I would have held it against her. I mean, the fact that she didn't give me a bris milah, I would have been so angry. How could you deprive me of this mitzvah? Now I have to do it myself, and that's it's not an easy thing for an adult to go through. And not only that, but there's a very beginning that should be bismanai. So if I did have to do it myself as an adult, it would be b'di'evid. So that's the answer that I would have to give. The two answers that I would give to this woman who's asking. But the truth is, I would also tell her she's not bikaris, and she should go to the Reform Temple. We don't need her. We don't need people like that in from shuls. It's one thing, you're brand new and we're trying to invite you, we're trying to makarav you, but if you don't have like mamish just basics of what you're supposed to do in Yiddishkeit, and that could even be a havamina. It just boggles my mind. I guess it's because I come from a somewhat a traditional background, that I see people, they're not frum, but they're going to have a bris milah. Doesn't cross their mind not to have a bris milah, So, this is the Maisa. This is the, so those are the two things. One is that we are not perfect, and that's the whole point of all the mitzvahs. And so this is an emblem of all the mitzvahs. And like the Rambam says, we should have self-control, which is difficult enough with the bris milah, and he says more difficult without it, practically speaking. But there's kedusha, meaning I remember hearing a story of a reform bris milah, and they were saying, the female rabbi, I think, was saying to this baby, and the parents were uncomfortable with it, but she was saying, what's pshat? Why we have such a mitzvah? She said, this is a holy thing, never use it as a weapon. Because unfortunately, there are evil men who do that, right? I had plenty of them in the jail where I work. They just talked about Bill Cosby he was denied parole, right? And I know what that's all about, but I'm not going to talk about it. But I know how that works. And I knew that he wasn't going to get parole. If he refused to take responsibility for what he did, he's never going to get parole. He's going to be there he's there 3 years now. He has a 10-year sentence. He'll be there another 7 years. That's public knowledge. I'm not being megala anything. But there are people who use this as a weapon. That's wrong. And that's pshat in the bris milah. That's pshat in why we do this mitzvah, to teach that no, this is So and then the other thing is like I said, that if your son grows up, he's going to be very if he's going to be frum, he's going to be or even just have some feeling for Judaism, he's going to be so angry at you that you deprived him of this. Now, however, you don't have to be there to bris milah. My wife wasn't at. Uh, I think maybe I have 3 sons. Maybe she was at one of the brisin, if that. His mother doesn't have to be there. Absolutely no. This is a father's mitzvah. It's only if there's no father that's when it becomes a mother's mitzvah, and still she doesn't have to be there. She could appoint. She doesn't have to be there when it happens. There's no reason to be there, but it should be done. You know. That's what I have to say. So if you're uncomfortable with it, don't go. You know, it's part of the problem with all the egalitarianism and everything. You know, you want to be somewhere where you don't have to be, and then when you're there, you don't want it to happen at all because you didn't have to be there to begin with. And I'm usually pretty liberal about a lot of these things, but it's so unconscionable to me. Such a basic thing that someone could be part of they could say they're part of a modern Orthodox community. Again, I understand they're not from. I understand they're non-from people who daven in modern Orthodox shuls and are part of the community and are welcome. But this is a basic thing. You know, I understand. All right, you live 3 miles, 10 miles, 20 miles away from the shul, and you're and you have one of these modern Orthodox shuls with an open parking lot. I understand you're gonna drive to shul on Shabbos. I understand. All right, it's not always easy to keep to. There's not a kosher restaurant in 100 miles from you, you know. So all right. So you eat fish in the non-kosher restaurant. I understand that, but not to give your son a bris milah, you know. And to be honest, eating the fish in the non-kosher restaurant is not as bad as driving on Shabbos. Driving on Shabbos is really bad. Eating the fish in the non-kosher restaurant, you're probably okay. Miyakar adin, you know. Certainly you could get a tuna sandwich at the Subway or something, you know. The problem is really more the cooking stuff. But a regular tuna sandwich is absolutely nothing wrong with it. But for the most part, they're not always cooking the fish in the same place as the meat. It's not that bad. You can find all kinds of excuses for a person's not frum, right? But not to give your son a bris milah, that I can't excuse, you know. And that you don't believe in everything. That I also understand. It's a process. It takes some time, but there's nasa v'nishma. You just do it and you don't ask questions, and then you come to understand it. But the fact that you had already 3 children, 3 sons, and you did such a wonderful mitzvah bris milah, and you didn't get a geschmack from that mitzvah, that was failtig. There's something missing there. And again, I'm not usually a musar guy. I'm not usually a fire and brimstone guy, but I can't. So this is my teichacha. I don't know if I'm gonna send this on the Facebook or something, but it's mamish, you know. And this is what I mean. Judaism is a religion, not a race. You just happen to be born Jewish, and you feel some connection to Israel and eating falafel and singing Hatikva and waving a blue and white flag, but you don't want to give your son a bris milah. We don't need Jews like that. We don't need Jews like that. I'm sorry. And then they're going to say, don't tell me because Hashem said so. I'm 100% honest with that. Check yourself. You're so arrogant. You think you know better than God. It's ridiculous. And the person can be in an Orthodox shul and not be affected by that sfiva and remain. And for years, it sounds like she's been there for years. Maybe she grew up there. Maybe she grew up from. Who knows? Maybe she Shomer Shabbos. Ich weiß nicht. But I don't know anything about this woman. I don't know her situation. I don't know. But oh my goodness, there's something just so basic. There's certain things you shouldn't need to explain. You know, because if my mom who's intermarried and doesn't keep Shabbos and kashrus, but she understands this, and she would be very angry at any of my sisters if they had a boy didn't give a bris milah. She probably would never talk to them again. You know? So That's it is, it shouldn't need to be explained rationally. It should be a basic Yiddish gefühl. All right. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you later.